The Lotus Sutra, Chapter 3, A Parable. Then Shariputra said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, I now have no more doubts or regrets. I personally have received assurance of supreme awakening from the Buddha. But these 1,200 who are mentally free, while they were at the learning stage in the past, were always taught by the Buddha, who said, 'My dharma can free you from birth, old age, disease, and death, and enable you to finally attain nirvana.' These people, some still in training, and some no longer in training, being free from views of self and about, quote, existence or non-existence, thought they had attained nirvana. But now, hearing something they have never heard before from the world-honored one, they have fallen into doubt. Thus, world-honored one, I beg you to give causal explanations to the four groups, so that they may be free from doubt and regret." Then the Buddha said to Shariputra, "Did I not tell you before that when the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, by using causal explanations, parables, and other kinds of expression, teach the Dharma by skillful means, it is all for the purpose of supreme awakening. All these teachings are for the purpose of transforming persons into bodhisattvas. But, Shariputra, let me once again make this meaning still more clear through a parable, for intelligent people can understand through parables. Shariputra, suppose in a village or city or in a certain kingdom there was a great elder. He had many fields, houses, and servants. His house was large and spacious, but had only one gateway. Many people lived in the house, 100, 200, or even 500. Its halls and rooms were old and decaying, its walls crumbling, its pillars rotting at the base, its beams and rafters falling down and dangerous. All over the house, at the same moment, fire suddenly broke out, engulfing the house in flames. The children of the elder, say 10, 20, or even 30, were in this house. The elder, seeing this great fire spring up on every side, was very alarmed and thought, "Though I can get out safely through the flaming gateway, my children are in the burning house, enjoying themselves, engrossed in play, without awareness, knowledge, alarm, or fear. Fire is closing in on them. Pain and suffering threaten, but they do not care or become frightened, and have no thought of trying to escape." Shariputra, this elder said to himself, "My body and arms are strong. I can wrap the children in some robes and put them on a pallet or bench and carry them out of the house." But then he thought again, "This house has only one gateway, and it is narrow and small. My children are young. Knowing nothing as yet of the danger, they are absorbed in their play. Probably they will be burned up in the fire. I must tell them why I am alarmed and warn them that the house is burning and that they must get out quickly or be burned up in the fire." In accord with this line of thought, he called to his children, "Get out quickly, all of you." Although the father was sympathetic and tried to persuade them with kind words, the children, absorbed in their play, were unwilling to believe him and were neither alarmed nor frightened. They didn't even think about trying to escape. What's more, they did not understand what he meant by the fire, or the house, or losing their lives. They only kept running around playing, barely glancing at their father. Then the elder thought, "This house is already going up in a great blaze. If my children and I do not get out at once, we will certainly be burned alive. Now I have to find some skillful means to get my children to escape from this disaster." Knowing what his children always liked, and all the various rare and attractive playthings and curiosities that would please them, The father said to them, "The things you like to play with are rare and hard to find. If you do not get them when you can, you will be sorry later." A variety of great goat carriages, deer carriages, and ox carriages are now outside the gate for you to play with. You must get out of this burning house quickly, and I will give you whatever ones you want. When they heard about the rare and attractive playthings described by their father, which were just what they wanted, all of the children, eagerly pushing and racing with each other, came scrambling out of the burning house. Then the elder, seeing that his children had safely escaped and were all sitting in the open square and no longer in danger, was very relieved and ecstatic with joy. Then each of the children said to their father, "Those playthings you promised us, the goat carriages, deer carriages, and ox carriages, please give them to us now." Shariputra. Then the elder gave each of his children equally a great carriage. They were tall and spacious, and decorated with many jewels. They had railings around them, with bells hanging on all four sides. Each was covered with a canopy, which was also splendidly decorated with various rare and precious jewels. Around each was a string of precious stones and garlands of flowers. Inside were beautiful mats and rose-colored pillows. Pulling each of them was a handsome, very powerful ox with a pure hide, capable of walking with a smooth gait and fast as the speed of the wind. Each also had many servants and followers to guard and take care of them. Why was this? Because the great elder's wealth was so inexhaustible and his many storehouses so full of treasures, he thought, "There is no limit to my wealth. I should not give inferior carriages to my children. They are all my children, and I cherish them equally. I have countless numbers of these large carriages and the 7 precious materials. I should give one to each of the children without discrimination. I have so many large carriages, I could give one to everyone in the land without running out. Surely I can give them to my own children." Then the children rode on their great carriages, having received something they had never had before and never expected to have. Shariputra, what do you think about this? Is that elder, in giving equally the rare treasure of great carriages to his children, guilty of falsehood or not? World-honored one, even if that elder had not given them one of the smallest of carriages, he would not be guilty of falsehood. Why? Because the elder, from the beginning, had intended to use some skillful means to enable his children to escape. That is the reason why he is not guilty of falsehood. How much less so when, knowing his own immeasurable wealth and wanting to benefit his children abundantly, he gave them equally great carriages. The Buddha said to Shariputra, "Good, good. It is just as you say, Shariputra. The Tathagata is also like this, for he is a father to the whole world. He has long ago completely gotten rid of all fear, distress, anxiety, ignorance, and blindness. He has attained immeasurable insight, powers, and freedom from fear, and has gained great spiritual power and wisdom. He has fully mastered skillful means and the practice of wisdom. His great mercy and compassion never stop. He always seeks the good, whatever will enrich all beings. He was born into this threefold world, an old, decaying, burning house, in order to save living beings from the fires of birth, old age, disease, death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, agony, folly, blindness, and the 3 poisons, and to teach and transform them, enabling them to reach supreme awakening. He sees how living beings are scorched by the fires of birth, old age, disease, and death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, and agony. Moreover, because of the 5 desires and the desire for wealth, they undergo all kinds of suffering. Because of attachment to desire and striving, they endure much suffering in this life and later will suffer in a purgatory or as animals or hungry spirits. Even if they are born in a heaven or among people, they will experience many kinds of suffering, such as the suffering of poverty and hardship, the suffering of separation from what they cherish, or the suffering from encountering what they hate. Absorbed in these things, living beings rejoice and amuse themselves, without knowing or seeing or being alarmed or frightened. And never being dissatisfied, they never try to liberate themselves. In the burning house of this threefold world, they run about here and there, and, though they encounter great suffering, they are not disturbed by it. Shariputra, having seen this, the Buddha thought, I am the father of all living beings and should rescue them from suffering and give them the joy of immeasurable, unlimited Buddha wisdom, so that they can find enjoyment in it. Shariputra, the Tathagata also thought, if I used only divine powers and wisdom, setting aside skillful means, and for the sake of living beings praised only the insight, powers, and courage of the Tathagata, living beings would not be saved. Why? As long as all these beings have not escaped birth, old age, disease, death, sorrow, anxiety, suffering, and agony, and are being consumed in the burning house of the threefold world, how can they understand the wisdom of the Buddha? Shariputra, even though the elder had strength in his body and arms, he did not use it, but only through carefully worked out skillful means saved his children from the danger of the burning house, and then gave each of them great carriages with precious materials. So too the Tathagata, though he has power and is free from fear, does not use these, but only by wisdom and skillful means rescues and liberates living beings. Shariputra, the elder, seeing his children safely out of the burning house and no longer threatened, thought about his immeasurable wealth and gave each of his children a great carriage. The Tathagata does the same. He is the father of all living beings. He sees innumerable thousands of millions of beings escape from the suffering of the threefold world, from the fearful and perilous path, through the gateway of the teachings of the Buddha, and thus gain the joys of nirvana. Then the Tathagata thinks, I have dharma storehouses of Buddhas, with immeasurable unlimited wisdom, power, and freedom of fear. All these living beings are my children. I will give the great vehicle to them equally. The Buddha, wanting to restate this teaching, spoke in verse. I tell you, Shariputra, you and the others are my children, and I am your father. For repeated ages you have burned in the flames of many kinds of suffering, yet I will liberate all of you and enable you to escape the threefold world. Though I previously taught that you would attain extinction, that was only freedom from birth and death, not real extinction. What you need to do now is just to acquire the wisdom of a Buddha. If there are any bodhisattvas here in this assembly, let them give full attention to hearing the true dharma of the Buddha. The Buddhas, world-honored ones, use skillful means, and all living beings transformed by them are bodhisattvas. If there are people of little wisdom, deeply attached to clinging and desire, for their sake, the Buddha teaches the truth of suffering. Then all the living will be happy, having gained what they never had before. The truth of suffering taught by the Buddha is real and does not change. If there are living beings who do not understand the roots of suffering, who are deeply attached to causes of suffering, and are unable to give them up, even for a moment, for their sake, the Buddha uses skillful means to teach the way. The cause of all suffering is rooted in greed, If greed is extinguished, there will be no place for suffering. The elimination of all suffering is called the third truth. For the sake of this truth of elimination, you should practice the way. The escape from all bonds of suffering is called liberation. How can one become liberated? Merely leaving what is false is called liberation. But this is not yet true liberation, for it is not liberation from everything. So the Buddha says that this person has not yet achieved real extinction, because such people have not gained the unexcelled way. It is not my intent to lead them to extinction. I am the king of the Dharma, free to teach the Dharma, appearing in the world to bring peace and comfort to all the living. Shariputra, I teach this sign of the Dharma because I want to enrich the world. Do not recklessly proclaim it wherever you happen to be. If you find any who, hearing it, respond with joy and receive it with gratitude, you should know that they will never backslide. If there are any who believe and accept the Dharma of this sutra, they must have already seen Buddhas in the past, respected and made offerings to them, and heard this Dharma. If there are any who are able to believe what you preach, they must have seen me, and also have seen you, and these other monks, as well as bodhisattvas. This Dharma Flower Sutra is taught for the sake of profound wisdom. If people of shallow understanding hear it, they will become confused and fail to comprehend it. Shariputra, if I described all the sins of those who slander this sutra, in a whole eon I would not be able to finish. For this reason, I tell you especially, do not teach this sutra to people who have no wisdom. But if there are any who are clever, understanding, and wise, learned, and of good memory, who seek the Buddha way, to such people you may teach it. If there are people who already have seen hundreds of thousands of millions of Buddhas, planted many roots of goodness, and been firmly and deeply committed, to such people you may teach it. If there are diligent people, always compassionate and never sparing of their bodies or lives, to such people you may teach it. If there are reverent people with clearly focused minds who avoid all common foolishness and live alone among mountain streams, to such people you may teach it. What's more, Shariputra, if you see anyone who has given up bad friends and associates with good people, to such people you may teach it. If you see children of the Buddha who observe the precepts strictly, as though they were pure, bright jewels, seeking the great vehicle sutra, to such people you may teach it. If anyone is free from anger, upright and gentle in character, always sympathetic toward everyone, and reverent toward the Buddhas, to such people you may teach it. Furthermore, if in the great assembly children of the Buddha with pure hearts use causal explanations, parables, and other kinds of expressions to preach the Dharma freely without hesitation, to such people you may preach it. I tell you, Shariputra, if I were to describe all of the kinds of seekers after the Buddha way, in a whole eon I would not be able to finish. Such people can believe and understand. For them you should teach the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami, Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami, Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami.